Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Loina Motiga. Today we want to look at how to plant radish and what are the requirements. To begin with, you will have to look at the location that you're planting your radish and choose a sunny location with well-drained soil. The second thing that you need to look at is the timing. You need to know that radish are cool seasonal crops and they do well during spring or fall. So you will choose between the two seasons and decide on which season you want to plant, but they do well in those two seasons. The next thing that you need to look at is the soil preparation. Loosen your soil to a depth of 6 inches. How do you loosen your soil? You can either dig using holes, or if you're doing large scale farming, you'll definitely need the tractors to plow your land. The next thing after you have loosened your soil is you have to incorporate some compost manure to improve on your soil fertility. Remember, when your soil is not fertile, you will definitely not get the yield that you require. On to the next part is the sowing process. Sow seeds directly into the ground about half an inch deep. That is the depth. How deep will you plant your seeds? Let them be a half inch. On to the next part that you need to look into and is the spacing. They should be 1 inches apart from one radish stem to the other. They should have a difference of around 1 inch apart. Spacing of the rows, because you will plant your radish in rows, the spacing of the rows should be 12 inches apart. That is the minimum or the least space that you will require from one row to the other. Let the spacing be 12 inches apart. On the thinning process, this is what you do. Once seedlings emerge, thin them to 2 inches apart to prevent overcrowding. That is when they start to germinate, or once they start to grow, you make sure that you have thinned them so that they can have a spacing or a difference of 2 inches apart from one to the other. Let the spacing be 2 inches apart. On the watering process, always ensure that the soil is evenly moist but not soggy. Soggy means you have put a lot of water in your soil. That is not required while planting radish. Therefore, ensure that the watering process is evenly done. To the harvest, okay, harvest radish when their roots are about 1 inch in diameter. That is the roots, because you harvest them when they are 1 inch in. That is the diameter of the radish should be 1 inch. Typically that is around after 4 to 5 weeks of sowing. After you've planted them, you can give them a duration of 4 to 5 weeks and they will be ready for harvest. On how do you harvest? You gently pull them from the soil or use a garden fork. Yes, this is what we call a garden fork, and that is what you should use while harvesting. For if you require a continuous harvest, you ensure you sow your radishes every 2 to 4 weeks. That is when you plant, and you will have a continuous harvest. After you do this first harvest, then you'll do the next harvest if you plant, or if you have that difference of for 2 to 4 weeks. Okay. Onto the storage, brush off dirt and store radish into a cool, dark place. Brush off the dust that they have from the soil, and after you brush off the dust is when you store them in a cool, dark place. And you will not store forever in that cool, dark place. It will only go for a maximum of 2 weeks. That is how long you can store the radishes in that cool, dark place. Additional tips that you might require while planting your radish is the soil test. Conduct a soil test to determine if you need a lime or a fertilizer. Soil test mainly takes place, it considers things like the pH. You will be able to know a lot of things when you do your soil test, and it will also help you to know, do you add in fertilizer or do you add in a lime. The next additional part for the fertilizer. Radishes don't need a lot of fertilizer, so you do not have to worry about that fertilizer expense. A fertilizer blend that you need to use, you need to blend fertilizer that is light on a nitrogen but has a fair amount of phosphorus and potassium. I'll repeat that. You blend in fertilizer that has a light nitrogen, fair amount of phosphorus and potassium. Onto pest and control. We all need to take all the necessary cautions to prevent pests and diseases. For the pest control, if you have a flea beetle problem, cover the beds with a floating raw cover. That is all that you need to do. You do not even have to think so much of how you solve that problem, but I've mentioned only one problem. If you have a flea beetle, that is what you do. You cover the beds with floating raw cover. Variety. Choose a variety of radish that suits your climate and growing conditions. There are various types of radish. Even if I've talked about it generally on how you plant your radish, there are various types of radish that you can plant. That is why I have told you, you should be cautious, or you should do an environmental study to know which type of radish will do well in which type of soil and in which type of climate, so that you will be able to plant accordingly depending on the type of the climate and the soil that is in your farm. Okay, there are various types. Maybe I'll mention a few, and there are others. I'll only mention a few. I'll not mention all. I'll have mentioned a few. For example, for the red radish, we have cherry bell, French breakfast, early scarlet globe. Those are among the red radish. For the white radishes, we have daikon, white isel, white beauty. Those are also a few among the white radishes that I have touched or I have mentioned. It's a sample. I've done a sampling among many other types of radishes. Therefore, you can take your time to investigate or to do a study on the other type of radishes that you can grow. That's the end of our vlog. Hope you have enjoyed the entire vlog. Thank you so much for watching my content. Till we meet in the next one, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, share, hit that notification bell so that each and every time I'll be uploading, you will be notified. Bye bye.